Uh, Alright, apologies for the helmet, apologies for the rain jacket. I'm down in Berry, it's pouring with rain, I don't have any gear. When I do a vlog about these disc brakes, include this bit. I'm descending Berry Mountain. Conditions are horrible. I get it. I get it. If you're faced with this, if this is a regular thing for you, I get it. Welcome to the vlog, guys. Yeah, so this is the disc brake bike vlog. But here's the thing, like, I don't either love them or hate them. But what I have found the most interesting part about, well, riding these brakes for the last 5 months has been kind of the myths or the sort of preconceived ideas that I had going into riding these disc brake bikes from reading stuff and hearing things about it from other people, and what the reality actually was. So I thought what we'd do is we would go through the myths, the urban legends of disc brake bikes, and we'll shoot them down, because I've got to be honest, there's pros, there's cons, but most of them are all false, and the riding experience is, well, it's just not what I expected. I love this one. If you get disc brakes, you'll become a better descender. No. No, if you get disc brakes, you'll be the exact same descender you were prior to getting disc brakes. What has changed is, well, maybe your brake points on the descent, but your ability to lean a bike over, to feel a corner, to feel grip, to put your weight in the right position is exactly the same. And it's actually quite dangerous. I've seen guys get disc brakes and be like, oh, I'm ripping descents now. Well, the basics still apply. And kind of off the back of that is that inference that disc brake bikes are safer or kind of more suited to beginner riders due to their braking. I just don't see that, right? For example, like, I was obviously swapping between the rim brake bike and the disc brake bike quite often. And a perfect example for me is descending a really bad descent down in Kangaroo Valley. Bumpy, cornery, technical descent on the two different bikes. But all that was changing really was where I would brake for a corner. So the braking was a different point. It was just a different point. It wasn't a better point or a worse point. So I don't quite get why one is safer than the other. It's just different. So for me, that kind of myth that disc brake bikes are faster descenders or safer descenders, well, I don't get that. Here's one. Disc brake bikes are better endurance bikes than they are race bikes. The inference sort of being that they're a bit soft, a bit sort of laid back. Oh, no, 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 no. The first thing you'll notice getting on one of these things is just how stiff they are. Now, obviously, I think that's probably due to just the way that the frames are built. Obviously, they're reinforced in the forks to take a lot of that braking power, and there's just some additional stiffness in there, and you can feel that. Translates to me to a real race feeling bike. So disc brake bikes are basically rim brake bikes, but with better braking. Guys, there's so much more to it than that. That's what I found. Like, the ride quality of these is just different. It's a completely different experience. For example, I find cornering on these, I tend to take a slightly wider line into corners and take an apex a bit later. In a straight line, I genuinely feel this feels like a faster bike than a rim brake bike. And I kind of reckon this is the key point with the disc thing, because at the moment, we are still split. We're still split with the rim brake and the disc brake stuff. And for me, the quality is quite different. You know, for example, this XR3, there is a rim brake and a disc brake version. They're two very different bikes. Don't be under any illusion. You buy a disc brake bike,
it's a very, very different riding experience. So how well do you know your mechanic? I hope you know them really well, because you're going to get to spend a little bit of time with them. Look, like anything, anytime there's new equipment, new technology, it's going to take some time for you to get your head around it. And in the meantime, you're going to end up going to someone who knows their way around it. All those little things that you could easily fix on the caliper brakes, you don't know how to do that yet. So you're going to spend a little bit more money and a little bit more time with these guys. I think the maintenance-free thing comes from this concept that, you can ride them through all kinds of weather and all this. They're just real hard wearing and heavy duty. Well, no, they're as wearing as everything else. If you ride them a lot in the rain, you're going to have to replace your pads. Like if you do long descents repeatedly, you're probably going to go through more rotors. It's not like some magic bullet from that perspective. And the thing that has surprised me a little bit is just been how fragile they are. The tolerance is so small between the pads and the rotors that something goes wrong. Now, look, I've watched all the videos, I do all the different bits and pieces about recentering and all that kind of stuff, and sometimes that works to me. But when that doesn't work for me, again, I'm back in here. And look, I know this is something that I will get on top of as I sort of learn more around disc brakes, but I'm clueless about them. People mention things like hoses and fluid, and I'm like, when did this become a freaking gardening bloody show? Wheel changes on disc brake bikes are slower. My experience, raced in 2 races now with the bike, and I have to say, I had no issues with it whatsoever. And I've got to be honest, guys, I had the through axle out and in the same time you could get a quick release in and out. So for me, that kind of performance debate about the wheel change thing is not a huge one. It's a myth that I think we can kind of quash. I should clarify, we're talking about like race road bikes here. Like if this was a commuter chat or a commuter channel, 100%, disc brakes every day of the week. Mostly because you can just run as fatter tyres, but look, they're known knowns. This vlog's a little bit more about known unknowns or unknown knowns. Unknown knowns? Anyway, back to it. Disc brakes are harder to clean. Could not disagree more. These things are so much easier. You basically just seem to be doing like a frame clean a lot of the time, and that does a lot of it. You don't have the build up of like sand, especially here in Sydney, sand around the calipers or anything like that. And you don't get the scum. You don't get that sort of when you're riding in wet weather, especially around here. You don't get that rim scum that can build up around the chainstays and the seat stays. It's much easier. Like a frame clean, a lot of the time will do the whole job. I don't have to tend to take the wheels off to even do like a pretty solid clean. Oh, braking. Maybe we'll get ABS on the bikes. What do you reckon? Anyway, I love this one, okay? So you are more prone to punctures on a rim brake bike as opposed to a disc brake bike. The theory goes something along the lines of, on these long alpine descents, we're all blowing out our tyres on rim brake bikes. Okay, to start with, we're not doing alpine descents, so that's not a thing. And the other thing is, if you're braking really heavily and really poorly, obviously there's a technique to braking, you're just as likely to overheat the rotors and bend them out of shapes than you are to blow out a rim on a rim brake. And taking that into the puncture type thing, if you're just maintaining your tyres, you're just maintaining your tyres. Ride through a pile of glass, you're just as likely to flatten. No matters what your bloody braking's doing. Disc brakes look cooler. Well, design and all that kind of stuff's down to personal opinion. I'm not going to waffle mine on that. Hell yeah, I am. Profile shot, I'll give you that. Yeah, look, they do look cool side on. Big circle with a little circle. I like that. I reckon that's a really cool kind of design feature. But front on, they look slop. Like, it basically looks like a road bike where someone has plonked a dinner plate down on the fork. It's kind of like people with big noses. Well, it's the opposite of people with big noses, actually. So front on, they kind of look, well, normal and just like normal members of the community. And then side on, it's a bit like, oh, really? So this is not a rant, right? I like this bike. I like the group set. I like the disc brakes. I think it's all pretty cool. But actually going back through and putting this together, it's been interesting. I reckon the one really big takeaway is when you go disc, because we all have to, but when you do, go full disc. Don't do what I've done and try and do a little bit of disc brake, a little bit of rim brake. It just doesn't work. Go fully fledged, learn the new system, start building up the spares, all that stuff that I had no idea about, and I'm now managing 2 different systems. Don't do that. I did mention real quick there that we're all going to be on it. We are all going to be on it. That is written in stone. I've heard it from people who make these decisions. And I'll be honest with you guys, I'm super cynical about that. I still believe that disc brakes are a solution to a problem that never existed. The braking on my bikes, you know that, whatever, you don't need to hear that. But we're gonna head there. If you do it, when you do it, go full disc. All right, guys, if you've enjoyed this, and I've had fun making this actually, and look, we'll deal with the specifics of this bike and this group set in more detail as we go along, but I just wanted to do this one, okay? But if you like this kind of stuff, obviously we've got some really interesting race stuff coming up. The product reviews that we're building up now, I'm really, really keen to. A few of the boys are going to get involved in that, Jesse, Angus, and a few others as well, so you won't just be listening to this old bloke talk rubbish. Subscribe to the channel, guys. Please do like this video, and we will see you in the not too distant future. Thanks, guys.
As aero helmets go, it's probably one of the better looking ones, and that counts for something. Aesthetic value these days is a big part of all your helmets. Gone are the days of an aero helmet that just looks like a mushroom.